All right.
All right, so we're at 12:30, Keith. Let's give it another 2 minutes. We've got a bunch of
Yes.
people still checking in here, and I'm giving everybody a chance to speak. So
Yeah.
on giving you a chance to talk as well. If you have any questions, I would also suggest everyone, ladies and gentlemen, if you're checking in today, this is Simple Steps 1 today, how to start your own business, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you're very lucky today to have Keith Leibson as your presenter today. Keith has been a mentor for many, many years with the SCORE organization, and he's also managed his own business in the past, as have I. I'm Joe Warner. We're doing this together. So we both feel some of your pain if you've been in business, and along the way, feel free to put any questions in the chat box, and we'll try to address them. I'll read them and try to address all your questions kind of as we go through the presentation. Keith will speak for about an hour, and then we'll have Christy Buchanan-Wellman from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, who's going to speak to us a little bit about some of the tremendous services that the library offers small business owners. And it's not your mom's library anymore with a lot of books. I mean, the data analytics and some of the data management programs that are available through the library are really outstanding and really help you as far as segment the market and define your target audience. So we'll come to that about an hour from now. Keith, when you're ready, you got the presentation up, right, as well?
Yep. I'm going to share the screen right now. Awesome. Wait. View.
And again, as a reminder, so you don't drive yourself crazy with all the charts that we're going to show you, you're all going to get the PowerPoint presentation via email sometime in the next 48 hours, right? So you don't need to copy pages.
All right. I'm trying to get this up. There we go. View. Wait, how do
Jessica Wells, do you have your hand up? Do you have a quick question we can answer?
All right. So all right. Well, I just lost my screen. Are you all seeing the presentation? Are you seeing it?
I see it.
Yes, but
Yeah.
we also see your notes field, so
Yeah.
you
There we
may
go.
want to
There we go.
adjust.
Now it's
There
gone,
you
right?
go. Yeah.
All right. I don't know about you all, but I got a big red box on my screen. Is that on your screen?
Yes.
I see that too.
I don't know what that is. I opened that before. Let me close this program. There you go. Now it's gone.
There we
Thank
go.
you. Hey, see, I go with it like you all, right? You got to roll with the punches. So, yeah, welcome all to Simple Steps. I'm going to start my timer so I can stay on track. Yeah, my name is Keith Leibson. I have been a SCORE mentor for about 12 years now. I am one of the mentors who is still in business. You all found SCORE somehow or some way. It is a nonprofit that's got offices all throughout the country. And I know over the years they've consolidated a little bit. So this now I am in the Charlotte location, but I believe we have people in this class all through North Carolina. So what I would suggest to you all is one service that SCORE provides also is you can get mentors like me and Joe, and we'll work with you on an ongoing basis with a lot of the stuff that you're learning today in the class. And like Joe said, my background real quick is I am still in business, but I have gone through a lot of what y'all are going through. I will tell you real quick what I do, but I am not here to get clients. You can beg me till tomorrow and I will say no. I am a financial advisor. I started back in 97. I am purely independent. And I started at a big firm. I went independent in the early 2000s. I had a partnership for 10 years. We had 6 employees. I gone from sole proprietor to an S corp. That partnership eventually kind of fell apart. And I kind of had to restart in 2007. Not really restart, but just have a separation. And we had agreements in place that helped us get through it. So I've lived a lot what you guys are going through, trying to build my practice, grow my practice, maintain my practice. And then professionally, people are paying me. I'm a fee-based practice, so people pay me to do the things like cash flow planning, tax planning, help them with corporate structure, and all other kind of stuff in the financial world. So I've lived it personally, and then I also do it for other people. And that's what I love about SCORE is I could be a mentor, and then instead of me doing all the work, you guys would do all the work. So it kind of gets me allowed to do it without having all the work put on me. It's the stuff that you'll have to do for yourself. So that's my background. And here today we're doing Simple Steps 1, which is all the basics, all the things you got to be thinking about when it comes to starting a business, operating a business, getting customers, getting clients. And we got a nice range of people here today. An audio business, people that want to do products out of market, an ornament business, floor cleaning, mentoring, mentors in the room, transitional house, nurse practitioner, a couple consultants, floor cleaning. And a lot of you looks like you're looking to get all the basics and the startup stuff. You're going to get it here today. So I'll keep moving around, moving on. I am also a little bit of a fast talker, so I will slow myself down as I peek at my clock, seeing how much time I've got here, because I do want to leave time for the library at the end to have a great service for you all that they provide that I think you'll benefit from. So make sure you stay for that. So we kind of did this a little bit. That's why I had to go through the chat. I tried to get as much people as I could, and I'll to integrate people in the room with the stuff that we're talking about. If at any time you do have a question, like I even see Terry has her hand up. Either A, if you're a panelist in the room, I don't mind if you shout out real quick and say, "Hey, Keith, I got a question," or just put it in the chat, and then Joe will try to answer it in the chat. And if it's applicable to the room, he'll interrupt me, and then we'll answer it in the room. All right. So that's that part. I talked about SCORE, what we offer. A couple things as well is definitely get yourself a mentor. And also, if you haven't, I mean, you found this class, so you probably will find all the other stuff, but get on the SCORE email list and check the SCORE national site and then the SCORE Charlotte site for all kinds of educational events like this, either in person or webinars. A lot of good stuff. There's just all good content. So definitely engage in all that as well. All right, so moving on. Again, I mentioned there's SCORE chapters all through Charlotte. I mean, excuse me, all through North Carolina. So that when it comes to getting a mentor, if you're not in Charlotte, if you're out in Raleigh or Asheville or different part of the state, they'll get you a mentor who's in your area. So what are we talking about today? Where's my pen? So here we are today. Now, we're going to cover everything in these two classes. So today's class is an overview of everything in here. So what we would encourage you to do is after this class, definitely sign up for session 2 and session 3. And what those sessions are, you will actually do the work of the things we're talking about today. And you don't have to wait for those classes to do the work, but just like anything else, when you start doing the work, also do those classes and you'll build on the work you've already been doing. And if you haven't started, then that'll get you started. Okay. And then I know a lot of people sometimes use this basic and use this work, to determine, whether or not, their business is a good idea or is it profitable or how do you make it profitable so you don't really jump in head first before it's profitable. And so some people use that work to even determine if they're going to do their business at all. As I look at this list, and from my experience, everyone on this list already wants to do their business, and it's not really a go or no go decision. It's really how do you do all this stuff in here so you're, managing your cash and, how do you get customers and how are you marketing and is your structure correct? And, a lot of it is just doing that work. In your mind, you're already kind of wanting to operate. But sometimes people look at it, look at the numbers and look at the work and say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I shouldn't, leave my job and go do this flooring company or leave my job and go be a consultant, because the numbers just don't make sense. Or, wow, I got to do that much to hit those numbers. Or I don't have the experience enough. So, some people do the work that maybe they shouldn't go in head first or start the business they're thinking about. But ultimately, in my experiences, the work will get you increase the probability of success. And that's where most people are when I see them through SCORE. All right. All right, cool. So that's that part. I'm going to move on to the next. Let me delete that for you so you don't see all that mess. All right. So what you're going to learn today, workshop benefits. We're kind of talking about it now. You're going to learn the basics. Um, we'll get into more. You'll learn that, we'll get
I
into
don't even see
different
machine.
things. We talked about it already. We'll talk about the myths and realities
Yeah,
of being
that's
a
something
business
to
owner. What are their critical success factors? And then what are your options to owning a business? Start from scratch, buy someone's business, do a franchise. We'll talk about that. What are components of owning a business? How do you make it legal? We're going to talk about that. The whole class, we're doing basics, right? And then we'll talk about the library insights at the end. And then there is a self-assessment you can do at the end when you get this. Yes, SCORE will email this whole presentation to you. And in the back is an assessment. Just do the assessment. It just rates where you are based on everything you're learning today, and then helps you kind of identify where maybe you should need to focus your energy on, whether it's with yourself, with somebody else, or with a mentor, right? So definitely do that assessment at the end when you get the kit, and then we'll talk about next steps. All right. So that's what we're going to learn today, and now we're going to kind of keep getting into it. Come on, move. All right. All right, I already talked about the benefits, the feasibility plan, what you're getting out of this class. So a lot of my styles, I just I talk because I know the content. And a lot of times I'll integrate different parts. And so when I get to something, we've already hit on it. And this is one of those examples. So what are the myths and realities of being an entrepreneur, or really, I call it a business owner, right? Because a lot of us, that's really what we are. We are entrepreneurs, but at the end of the day, we're business owners, right? We're operating a business, and the entrepreneur is the person that created the idea. But they're synonymous in lots of ways. So, what are some of the myths and realities of being in business for yourself? Well, one of them is people think that oop, that where's my pen? That you won't have to work hard or put in long hours. I don't think anybody here. Well, maybe you do have that belief, but the reality is that's just not true. At some point it can become true, right? But especially in the beginning, you're working hard, you're putting in hours, you're wearing all the hats, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a myth that you're not going to have to work a lot of hours and put in a lot of work. You can get to that point, but not in the beginning. Myth number two is that your product is unique. That is not true. Now, maybe you have a unique way you do business. Maybe you have a unique way you console or clean floors. I know I had a client that his unique way of cleaning houses and ground was not power washing, and he would talk about soft washing instead and the pros and cons of soft washing versus power washing. But at the end of the day, but most of us, what we're doing is not unique. And even for that client, it was a unique method, but cleaning houses and cleaning the mold off your house and the mold off your pavement wasn't necessarily unique. There's a lot of people doing that. So his job was in your marketing. How do you identify that difference? But at the end of the day, we're not really not unique. Even in my practice, I have things that make us unique. But as a financial advisor, I'm not unique because there's a billion of us. So at the end of the day, it's how do you market your uniqueness within your industry. But yeah, maybe you're unique. You created something that's so different that nobody else has or has heard about. But at the end of the day, for most of us, we're not unique. And we got plenty of competition. Myth number three is that you can deduct everything. That you won't pay taxes. That also is not true. At the end of the day, you want to keep your books separate. You want to keep track of everything, and you want to have deductions off of your revenue. But at the end of the day, you want to be showing profit, and you will be paying taxes on that profit. And there's only so much you can do to wipe out expenses and revenue. At the end of the day, you would paying taxes. Now, can you get and do things like become an S corp that you can have more tax savings or flow things or document things better? to minimize taxes, but as a business owner, you cannot deduct just everything and not pay taxes. That is not a truth. Myth number four, as a business owner, you won't have a boss. That is also not true. It is true in a way, um, but based on your business, I mean, look, um, transition house, you might have government might be your boss. Or what I'm trying to get to, the nurse practitioner, you're going to have regulations to comply to. The floor cleaning, you might have vendors. The product ornament person might have suppliers. The person bringing stuff to the market, you have suppliers and people buying products for. You might have rules. So at the end of the day, there's always going to be people within your life and your world that are going to put a little bit of a handcuff on your business, or maybe I really want to do it this way, but I can't because I got to deal with this vendor or this provider, or I got a regulation. But yes, you do have more freedom to choose your vendors and providers and how you operate, and not a boss in sense. But just put that out there that there's always going to be some, you don't always have full fluidity or control over everything that you want to do. At some level, there's some kind of boss quasi within your world that you got to manage and operate and integrate into your businesses. And then that applies to myth number five, is that you can do whatever you want. No, you cannot. You got to be compliant, whether it's with the government, local counties, local regulations, state regulations, federal regulations, zoning, and and vendors and suppliers, and landlords if you're renting, or HOAs if you're at a home business, and stuff like that. So there's some myths and realities I want to hit on. So hopefully some of those add some value. Okay. And I see a lot of chat. So Joe, I'm assuming you're hitting that chat. Joe, we have any questions you want to integrate into the room? And if not, I'm going to keep on moving.
Yeah, keep moving. I'm addressing some of the questions online, and people were asking for the a place where we offer other courses. So I just did that. So go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then here's a statistic. It's always interesting when I see SCORE update their presentation. I used to have two slides here. It used to be after 2 years and then after 5 years. And they took out there after 2 years, which said, 75% success ratio. Well, after 5 years, it goes down to 50%. Why? And at the end of the day, it's people are not doing the things that you're learning today, and you're not implementing things, and you're not doing the stuff to make you successful up front, but really is that people aren't doing the things to make you successful ongoing. They do it a little bit and then they kind of get lazy, or they stop doing things because it doesn't feel comfortable, or they don't want to go out and network, or they don't want to make calls, or they don't want to do X, Y, or Z. And the longer they stop doing what you need to do to make it successful, the failure rate is very high. And I can even say you go past 5 years, it increases the probability that you will be successful and stay in business long term. But still, half of them don't after that either. So. All right. So, what are some of the critical factors that you need to be successful? I always tell people, if you didn't have these or didn't think you had these, you would not be here today. But look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. So the first thing is, just ask yourself, do you have experience in the field? Do you know how to install floors? Are you a nurse? Do you already do mental health? Do you have experience in after school or tutoring or dealing with kids, or maybe operating a food truck and then you want to learn, or working with seniors? Do you have experience in any of the stuff that you all want to do? I would assume you do, or you wouldn't be here. But I've seen people that are great chefs but want to open a restaurant. So the real question is, well, you know how to cook, but do you know how to manage employees? Do you know how to do bookkeeping, or how you're gonna have someone do your books? And do you know how to deal with, like, order supplies? You might be a great cook, but not great at running a restaurant or running a food truck. Or you might have been great at installing floors for another company, but don't have the experience of hiring and firing and getting the best price when you order supplies, or dealing with regulations, or dealing with, again, there's different levels of experiences. So make sure you have it. Also, make sure you have a good work ethic. Again, if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Can you effectively manage time? A lot of people are be pulling at you. A lot of different hats are going to be wearing, so you have to be a good time manager. You definitely have to be able to multitask, and willing to take advice from others. I still today ask my clients for feedback on what we're doing. I get advice all the time from people, and if you're not open to taking it, believe me, I've seen people that are still have that wall and they're very, they don't take advice very well, and that can prohibit your ability to be successful. And then do you have the adequate capital? That one really ties into your cash flow planning. What are your capital needs to start? But really, what are your capital needs to operate ongoing? And your financials and cash flow work will identify those numbers, and working with someone like myself can kind of help you quantify those numbers and then figure out, how you're going to operate and meet those numbers ongoing to and so forth. But again, these are all critical factors that you need to have in order for you all to be successful. So this part, I love how SCORE added the financial part. So the next two are the financial considerations, right? Um, uh, this to me, I'm going to kind of paint a verbal picture. Um, when you go to class two, sorry, no, three, you dive into the work. And I know SCORE's got a great spreadsheet there. So for me, not just because I'm a financial advisor, but it's one thing that was a key part of my managing my practice in life, both in my business and personally, for the last 20 years is that I call it cash flow work, which is different than budgeting, right? So you have to have some type of way, you or somebody, I do it on a spreadsheet that eventually, you have your upfront costs, right? And then your ongoing costs, which is, you know, you know, I got to purchase, supplies and, so, now some people have ongoing business costs, and then you have also business costs of creating your product that you're selling, right? So now I'm getting into the weeds here in my mind, how you create your spreadsheet, but well, in order to make my ornaments, I have these costs. But then to operate my business, I have these costs. I need liability insurance. I have my website. I have my, um, you know, cost for paper. I have my, GoDaddy. I'm trying to spin. I have my CRM software. I have my email marketing. So all different. So different kinds of costs. You have to start writing them all down. Write your upfront costs down, your ongoing costs down, and this is where you're creating your financial spreadsheets. So what are your tools and equipment? Are you going to get a building or leases? Um, what is your initial inventory? What reserves do you need? Well, how do you figure that out? Well, here's my monthly nut to run this business monthly. So some people need the reserves to do that, or you need the money up front because it might take you X amount of months to make revenue. So back to the cash flow planning, you start talking about up top. What's my revenue? How much am I going to make? How many customers? How many ornaments do I got to sell? How many flooring accounts? How many consulting jobs? What am I going to charge? How many do I need? And then we can kind of figure out how many of these do you need to meet your monthly number. So I know I'm talking a lot here. I hope this is starting to make sense. And that ties into also here what they're telling you here is then again, what do you need out of the business for your personal, right? Have you looked at your personal needs? So I need X out of this business to pay personal. So again, I need X to meet my monthly expenses, and then I need X plus Y for monthly expenses and what I need out personal. Because I need $2,000 a month out of my personal to cover my personal living expenses. Now, if you're a single income house and a dual income house, your pressure for getting out of the personal can be different, right? So it's financials and just spending the time to on your financials is a key component of just looking at what you need up front, looking at what you need ongoing, and then people like me and you can use that to then manage your growth or operations going forward, where you can say, well, here's my revenue and how much do I got coming in this month or expect next month, or if I want to expand, I can add a line, or if I add a cost I forgot about and I add the line, you can then filter seeing the impact on all this stuff. So I hope that made sense. I can't see your faces, so I don't know how glazed look you all are. But did this crash course in cash flow planning make sense for you people? And you all can just go like this, but no one's on video. But I hope it does. And thank you for that thumbs up. I appreciate it. Um, and sometimes in conservation of time, I'll show you the spreadsheet that I use for clients, but your mentors have the spreadsheet. I've got a spreadsheet I use with my score clients. And in that third class, that Simple Steps 3, you will get it in there. And I think someone from E-Trade, one of the CEOs or a big guy at E-Trade made that for Score years ago. Now that one sometimes gets really detail oriented. And so eventually you can simplify all the work that I'm talking about as well. But it's a huge component of what you need to be doing in order to be successful. Um, so I will move on from that. All right. So now when I talked about the financials, what are your options to be into business for yourself? And now we're going to go over the pros and cons of the multiple ways you can do it. So the options are you can start a business from scratch. You can buy someone's business who started from scratch. You also can buy a franchise and start from scratch, or buy someone's franchise who looking to retire or transition out, right? You also can be a home-based business, an online business, and or a nonprofit. Obviously, there's overlap because you can be one of these three and be one of these two as part of one of these three. So we're going to now talk about the pros and cons of doing these. Right? So what are the advantages of starting from scratch? It's your baby, right? You create the identity, you create the name, the logo, who we want to target, who our clients and customers are going to be. It is yours. All of it from scratch, right? That's awesome. The disadvantage of that is you're starting from scratch. You have no reputation, nobody knows you, you have no track record, no history. And to some, that could be, make it more difficult to get customers. All right. So that's the pros and cons of starting from scratch. Well, another option is you can buy someone's existing business who started from scratch, right? What is the advantage of that? Well, you are buying an established clientele and suppliers. It's a known equity. It's a known service. You can review all the financials. Go right in off the top, and off the bat you're even making X, Y, Z as long as you maintain the business that way. And also, if you want financing, sometimes it makes it easier to get financing when you buy someone's existing business because you have a track record, and you can show there's going to be revenue. The disadvantage of buying an existing business is if you don't do your good due diligence, there could be hidden, my God, hidden mines, hidden pitfalls, right? Debts you weren't aware of. Maybe had a bad reputation, or the customers and clients were loyal to the owner, not to you. And to that point, a big thing, if anyone here is considering buying an existing business, and that could be a great way to get into business, is have a great transition, right? I've helped people buy existing businesses. I've helped existing businesses sell their businesses, and I say, hey, you're a landscape. What's your plan? Oh, well, I don't know. Like, is anybody in your practice that might want to buy it? I have a client who's a floor client. There's people in his practice he will probably sell the business to, right? They're already there. and so the transition's easy. So I have to tell my landscaping person, if you don't have someone, go find someone that wants their own landscaping company that isn't ready or doesn't want to own it themselves yet. And then you just have them working with you, and you have a transition plan. The next 2 years or 1 year, you bring them out, introduce them to all the clients. So anyway, I can go on and on about that. I actually, my soft wash guy did exactly that. He sold his business to somebody else, and they had a transition plan. So for the first 6 months, he took him out in the field. He did all the jobs with them. And then for the next year, he was available to them, very low key because he wanted to retire. But for the next year, he was feeding them leads because he was still getting leads. So they were incented to, lots of reasons. But anyway, I'm babbling here on that. That's a great way to get into business. I could tell you, I have a young advisor here in my practice. That's my plan. My plan is over the next 10 years is to prop him up and to transition to him, easy peasy. And that's just an example. All right. You also can buy a franchise. There is a franchise for every business. So I could tell you there are franchise consultants who are only paid if you purchase a franchise. I know one of them is a company called FranNet. That's the only one I remember because one of my friends from SCORE, that was his business for years ago. He was a rep for FranNet, and that's what he did. He consulted people in finding franchises that either fit the industry they want or finding a franchise that fits your personality. The pros and cons there is a proven system, marketing and sales support, training, continued relationship, and access to help. And also, I know I had a SCORE client that was doing AC or not AC, small appliance repair. He was doing fairly well, but he wanted a new van. He wanted another driver. He wanted to hire. Was having a hard time getting financing in the from the banks, and then he was able to do it through the franchise at a fairly reasonable rate. Okay. And then he's able to get that extra van, then hire someone and double his revenue. The negatives obviously is limited freedom. You could have a defined territory. Um, they do take royalty fees. And if there's a problem with the franchise, that could be negatively reflected on you. Okay. Home-based businesses, obviously advantages, they're convenient, less overhead, flexible. I do want to highlight this one, be very careful, caution, be very cautious doing that. It's hard to write with a mouse. Just be very cautious doing that. Just consult with your accountants to make sure that you're doing it correctly and that you're complying to the regulations to do that. And then also be aware, which people aren't aware of, and the clients don't do a great job. If you do this when you sell your personal house, you will now have to pay capital gains on anything you use for portion for your business. So it's a little bit of a quirk there, but let's be careful with that. Is my point. They do it correctly, and that it really fits for what you're trying to do. Um, and the disadvantages, you can have zoning restrictions due to local governments, state governments, and then even your HOA might have rules around a business at your house. I know my local HOA had not kicked out, is the wrong word. A guy in the neighborhood was clearly running his landscaping business out of his house. Every day there was 3 trucks lined up, and then people came, opened the garage, lowered the trucks, and then left. And every day they came back, unload the trucks, and he got a letter, and now he's renting a facility, a storage facility for the trucks, and has everything there. So, um, and that could affect your cash flow plan, right? Because in a cash flow plan, you might have had zero, and now you're gonna have to add $600 a month, whatever the month cost is, and then you have it all done. You can easily add that cost and see how it filters through your cash flow plan and your financials. All right, that's that. Um, Sorry. All right. Let me get rid of this. Clear. Online business, low startup cost. very acceptable in the marketplace. It's convenient, and it's totally flexible. You can sell anywhere. The negatives, it's low barrier to entry. Everybody can do it. So there's a lot of competition. Obviously, customers have high expectations, and you have no personal contact. Another thing I will say also, from my experience, even doing paid advertising myself through Facebook and social media over the years and other sources, that just the cost to convert people has gotten a lot more expensive. Where it went to be really organic to get your stuff seen, to now even if anybody to see your stuff, you got to pay. And then even crazy enough, when you pay for people to see your stuff, they still don't show it to your followers. And it's just and then how much people when you pay they show it to. They used to show it to a lot more, now they show a lot less. They pay a lot, so it's got more expensive. Is my point. So again, build that correctly into your financials and just be prudent about that. And expectation wise, that's my point here. Don't think it's easy because it's not. More competition. It does cost a lot more to convert people than it did 10, 15 years ago. Okay, for a lot of variables. And then the last thing is, I know we had one nonprofit in here. Yes, an advantage that you will qualify and can qualify for government and grants. You are protected from liability, and you can pay yourself a salary. So yeah, if you get a lot of revenue and your nonprofit gets big, yeah, I've even seen very successful nonprofits pay their executives and leaders very reasonable but very well good salaries. Okay. Disadvantage is that it has to be educational, it can't be for profit. You have to keep the profits in there. Um, uh, and obviously you have to keep your qualifications. The other thing I've noticed also for my nonprofit in here, and not that you don't want to do this, is that I do know up front the paperwork is very extensive, um, and very labor intensive, from my understanding. I do know, depending on where you are, in Charlotte, there are at least one or two, I think, mentors who have a background in nonprofits. So if you do get yourself a mentor, let them know you want to be a nonprofit, and they will try to assign you in any other region as well. They will try to assign you to someone that has that nonprofit experience. And the other thing I've seen for nonprofits is a big misconception, which a reality hit is when you're operating your nonprofit, you tend to spend all your time raising money and not doing the thing you were passionate about, which is kind of weird. You think you are at the home uh, counseling people. I think it was Transition House, and maybe it was women. I forget real quick what she said. I just wrote my note, Transition House. But you might not be spending as much time there doing the help that you want, and it's all out in the field trying to raise money, which to you might be great because the money is doing your purpose. But this is an experience I've seen. It's not easy to raise money, and that's a lot of work. So that's all. That's just put that out there for you. But a lot of people do it very successfully, and definitely continue to pursue that, and just be aware of the challenges that are there for you. Okay? Hope that helps. Moving on. So, what are the components of owning a business? Right? You are wearing all these hats. So, right now, you all think you're the CEO, but right now, you're doing it all. All right? Now, what I'm going to say, this is me, this is my little bias. At the end of the day, your number one job right now is sales, right? Sales equals revenue. If you have no revenue, you have no business, right? Yes, we will talk about marketing. How do you get revenue, right? But while you're trying to get your revenue out there selling, yeah, you got to deal with all this stuff, right? So you got to do your accounting. Now, as I jump around here a little bit, at a minimum, everybody, please, whether you're a sole proprietor or an LLC. Now, if you're an S corp, you better be keeping everything separate already. Okay? And the LLC, you are required to keep everything separate in order to maintain your liability protection. Okay? But regardless, if you haven't set up your LLC yet and you're spending money, you on paper are a sole proprietor. already just keep everything separate. It helps so much for just tracking, or at the end of the year when someone like me or your accountant says, what to spend money on? You know, you don't want to go through your personal checking account and try to find everything you spent money on, or your personal credit card. If you're a sole proprietor, just open up another personal checking account. If you have two personal credit cards, just keep it all separate. If you're an LLC, you need to keep it separate to protect your liability. But at a minimum, keep it separate anyway, because you're going to have to, when you do your taxes or want to, you're going to have to document it all. You want to have it all separate. If you're an S corp, you definitely have to do your bookkeeping and stuff like that. And that's where I start telling people, if I were you, I would outsource that part of your work. Okay. Well, can you afford to outsource it? What does it cost? Do that due diligence. And when you do your cash flow planning,
Right.
put it in your cash flow work. Okay, it's going to cost me this per month for them to do my bookkeeping and then do my, and then who's going to file your 941 form? I had some clients that do it themselves. I don't recommend it. My accountant files that. You got to file it quarterly. So anyway, as I get into the weeds there, I got to back out because I got to cover everything. That's one area at some point you might want to try to outsource it. Okay. Who's doing your human resources? How are you going to sell and market? Who's doing your customer service? We have some people who have fulfillment here, right? Your ornament, your products in the market. I mean, we all have customer service, but some people have more customer service, more product fulfillment, right? Who's doing all that? Who's doing the customer service?
Okay.
How you dealing with technology? I'm still dealing with technology. I have someone, he just billed me for an hour. I had him come in for an hour and he helped me with set up an online server for sharing documents and keeping it secure. He's always coming in and consulting me on stuff. Buying laptops or yada yada. Who's managing your facility? So you're wearing all this stuff. Just want to make you aware of it. Okay. I had a question. Was it applicable for the room? Someone raised their hand. Joe, did you see that?
Yeah, there's a question from
Sure.
Takia John. If you're sole proprietor, do you really need to get an EIN? And when it comes to bank accounts, you just need a business bank account. I would say definitely you always should separate your business expenses from your personal expenses for tax reasons, etc. So definitely set up. I mean, today doesn't really cost any money to have a separate account at a bank. So definitely have a separate business account. As far as Keith, as far as having an EIN, it doesn't matter really what type of organization you have. If you're going to have employees, you're going to need an EIN, right?
Yeah, so let me back on that one. Well, first of all, our disclaimer is we are not accountants. Okay, so we are not giving tax advice and we're not giving legal advice. So what I'm telling you is from my experience personally with my business and my life, and then with all my professional clients that I see all the time. Okay, so as a sole proprietor and an LLC, everything is running through your personal tax returns. I think as an LLC, when you file your LLC, they do give you an EIN number. As an S corp, I have an EIN number for sure. As an S
Correct.
corp, you file two separate tax returns. Okay? As an LLC and an S, you file one tax return. Okay?
Correct.
So with a sole proprietor, there's no other EIN number. Okay? And even with the sole proprietor and the LLC, you definitely still want to keep things separate. Now, when Joe said business account, as a sole proprietor, they're not going to call it a business account. It can be a separate personal account. Okay. Now, many years ago, when I was a sole proprietor, I went to the Cabarrus County, where I live, record of deeds, and at the deed of records, I submitted, was it that department? I submitted my company and I registered my company name. Keith Lapson doing business as. And then I got a document from them that I brought to my bank. And then they gave me an individual account that said Keith Lapson doing business as. Okay. But regardless, that was still an individual account. So regardless, yes, you want to keep it separate, but you're not going to have a
Always
separate
saying
AIN.
you can't do that with Epic.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Was that a
Slow up,
question
I gotta
or?
make-
It's Amber Cullen.
All right. That wasn't a question for me. So did I answer your question on the sole proprietor and the EIN number? Okay. I hope I
I
did.
think we're good, Keith. Let's move on.
All right. Thank you.
We got 15 minutes.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. So now we're going to talk about branding and marketing and sales. All right. So branding and marketing and sales is obviously, identify who your clients are, who your product is, and who you're trying to target, who needs it. You want to identify how you're different. You just want to be consistent in your messaging. And when the library goes, she's going to tell you how you can target a lot of this demographic stuff. But yeah, just who are you? What are you trying to target? What's your product? What's your service? And be consistent in all your messaging, right? And then create strategies in which you're going to promote your product. And again, you're going to do that when you develop your marketing plan. So I'm really big on what are multiple ways that you're going to market to your clients, i.e., are you doing social media? Are you going to do like we do? Someone said they're going to do markets for the food markets. The ornaments might go to craft markets. So multiple ways. I'm going to markets. I'm going to be physically there. I'm also going to do, maybe I'm going to collect cards and do email marketing. And I'm going to do maybe, text marketing, and I'm going to do education events, and I'm going to do videos, or we're going to do billboards. Like, what are the different ways? Have your metrics consistent, and then obviously, how are you going to manage your success and failure on that? And a lot of times for us, when we do advertising on social media, we're trying to collect emails, even though we're promoting other stuff, right? And so, because if someone registers for an event and they don't come, to me, that's not a failure. Because I've had people who registered for events, or we've done marketing and they asked for something and didn't participate, but now we have them on our email system and they've attended an event 3 years later. Or now they're on our email and they respond to a future email. So just identify what your success is and just keep implementing it across the board. And like someone just underlined here, you're going to cover it in the marketing section, workshop 3. You're going to get into the weeds on that. All right. Yeah, I've been talking 40 minutes, but I'll keep it to 15 more. I'm cool. So sales, who are your products, how are you going to present to them? What is your process? So everyone in your business, if it's the floor person, the consulting person, transition house, nurse practitioner, the mental health person, the ornament sales, the market, what is your process, right? So even my new advisor, like, what is this process? Well, your process is you're gonna go to an event. You're gonna try to get an email. You're gonna get a one-on-one, but you got to get an appointment. We're gonna do, and then after the appointment, you want to get a statement. And after the statement, we want to do the MRI meeting. And after the MRI meeting, we're going to email them this. And I said, what is your process in your sales? You want to document it, and you want to have a system to take people through that process. And then are you using, back to cost, a CRM software, client relationship management software, whether it's Constant Contact, Salesforce. I have one that's specific for my industry. My flooring company, yours probably one a management to track your vendors and your prospects and your follow-ups and your to-dos in a system. So we put it in our system, the follow-ups pop up. So all that stuff is part of your sales process. And then what does it look like, and then how are you implementing it, and how you're following through to get those sales. All right. Hope that makes sense. And I know I'm talking a little fast there, and I'll try to slow down a little bit. I'm going to keep moving on. I can't get rid of that red line, so I'm not sure why it's there. And then we talk about your skills. Are you weak in any areas? How can you improve your skills? What roles? Sometimes you can delegate roles. Sometimes you can bring in partners to help you with roles. Sometimes you can do strategic alliances to fill a shortfall where you share in revenue. All kinds of ways that you can fill any gaps, but identify where you might need assistance or help, and ways you can identify to fill those shortfalls, and improve on where you need to get better. Okay, that's that one is talking about. right? We talked about this a little bit in sales and marketing, but yeah, identify, you know, figuring out what your product is a critical factor. I'm gonna get back to cash flow planning with this one. I get it. What should I charge? Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? Is it too high, too low? Um, a lot of times I can help you with, or you can figure it out with your cash flow planning. A lot of times, sometimes you can figure out, all right, here's what I'm going to charge for my floor projects. Here's what I'm going to charge to be a nurse practitioner. Here's my consulting cost. And then looking at your need to meet your needs. Well, you have to meet X amount of that cost for those people. All right. Well, all right, at $300 an hour or at, that much for the floor or that much for an ornament, I got to sell that much, that many sales, that many customers to equals that revenue to meet my need, and then how are you going to go get that? And then sometimes you can play with the numbers. Well, you know what? I'm a big volume and price guy sometimes, especially as a startup. Sometimes I'm a favor of lowering my price point, and sometimes even doing that, you totally meet your numbers anyway. So it helps you get more clients up front, and then you so lots of ways you can do that, but focus on those numbers is a critical part of your business, and a lot of work you can do there as well. All right. Same thing here. Understanding your competition. What are they charging? What's their reputation? In your marketing and sales, can you highlight that? How you're better than your competition, how you're different than your competition. Can you do better things with suppliers and contractors to make you even more profitable or offer a lower cost or more services than what you're already providing? So understand what your customers are doing, but understand that same stuff within your own practice or your own business. How do you make it legal? Now I'm totally transitioning. We talked about it earlier, right? Everyone pretty much starts here. You can do partnerships, where here's why I get confusing. I see people do LLCs with a partnership, right? Then I see people do LLCs in different professions. You have the different professional LLCs. So again, that's where you got to consult with an attorney or do your due diligence, which one fits you. Okay. And then really when you start making good profit, when you want to protect yourself from liability, you really want to go from a sole to an LLC. Okay. As an LLC, they can't get your house, your 401ks, and so forth. If you're up here and you make a mistake or get sued, everything's is accessible. Now, if you're an LLC and you're commingling stuff, then everything is accessible again. So at least in an LLC, you're protected from liability. And then when you start making profit, either one, most of your accountants will say about 80 grand in profit. I've done it a little bit lower. Then you want to start looking at some S Corp for some good tax planning you can do here, right? There's tax stuff you can do here, but the next level, when you're hitting the profit, there's more tax planning you can do with the S. Okay, that's my crash course here. I see a hand raised. What question do I have on this?
Hi, thank you. This is Adam. I just had a quick question about this slide. Do I need to decide? I understand there's different tax advantages and liability concerns with each different type of company, but could I choose one and then change later on, or is this the sort of thing that, no, I really need to do my due diligence beforehand and kind of set it up right the first time?
Yeah, so obviously my disclaimer is I'm not giving you legal advice. So
Sure.
definitely this is just my experience. The answer is yes, you could, for the most part, change every time. I mean, if you're out there doing business, you're automatically a sole proprietor. I forget if I got your name down here, Adam, consulting. So if you're already talking to people about hiring you, you're already a sole proprietor,
Okay.
right? So you're already operating. And so no, that's where the LLC might make most sense to protect them from liability. I think when you're an S corp. So what happens is, I think if you're an S corp, there might be some paperwork to shut it down that account will help you with, but no, it's not complicated.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great question. Any other questions on this, or I can move on? Awesome. Here you go. Keep it simple. Sole proprietor or partnership. Again, I like the LLC up front if you've got a lot of assets to protect. Um, Again, people are litigious. I'm not the one never been sued, but you never know, right? And you could make a mistake, or something can happen that you don't foresee, right? But that's why I just talked about keeping it simple, and then eventually transitioning the practice to a different level, and then you can change. All right. Just make sure you comply with the government, right? Whatever your business is, make sure you comply with licenses and approvals. Do your research, ask other peers, comply with labor laws, and then make sure you're compliant with the IRS. Whether you're a sole or LLC or an S, you have different requirements. S corps have a lot more reporting requirements on a quarterly basis, an annual basis, than an LLC and a sole does. That's just doing it once a year on taxes. We tell you to keep it separate for simplicity when you do your taxes. But just comply. Just make sure you're doing everything legally within your industry, whether it's government, federally, state, or local. Okay. And then insurance. This fits into your cash flow planning, and just make sure you have the right insurance. So depending on your business, when we talk about property insurance, if you're using your car, so, again, product going to markets, right? Whether it's food or ornamental. Audio, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but if you're going to businesses and you're using your car, ask your auto insurance guy or girl. I know me at one point, two changes. At one point, when I was a sole, I had to have an amendment on my personal policy that I would use my business sometimes to have clients in the car or driving to stuff. When I became an S corp, my property and casualty guy says, "Oh, no, you now need a totally separate policy," because I'm talking not an S corp. I'm sorry. When I became an S corp, eventually my company bought my car. Then I was doing it differently. In addition, because my company owned the car, I could no longer have the amendment on my personal policy. I had to have a totally separate policy. So again, just make sure you're doing your insurance. If you have a car or a building, I own my office, so I have to have a separate policy for that. If you're leasing a place and you have product, you might have to have property insurance on your ornaments. If you have $1,000 of ornaments and you're out of place and someone steals it, or I don't know, it crashes, or I don't know, something happens, maybe you can insure your inventory. So talk to your property and casualty people, making sure you're doing the right insurances. Again, based on your business, they're calling here an umbrella policy. In my industry, I have errors and omissions. If I make a mistake and sue, but you want to make sure you're protected for liability. If you have employers, workers' comp. Really weird, as an S corp, I have to pay self-employment insurance on myself because I W-2 myself. So make sure you're doing that correctly. Health insurance is an issue, depending on, are you going to be at your spouse's at work? Are you in the private market? What is it going to cost you? Again, put that in your cash flow plan. Now, business interruption, that talks about like Keyman. Like in my business, we have my company has insurance on me that if I die, insurance comes in and then they can buy out my spouse. Or if people are disabled, you have a key person, that's what business interruption insurance is. How does the business continue if someone gets disabled or dies? Okay. So that's my crash course on the insurance considerations. I have a hand raised. Larry, you got a question?
Yes, really quick. Thank you. Is there a difference between errors and omissions insurance and professional liability insurance? Are they the same?
You know what? That's a good question for a P&C person because I'm kind of not sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're
should
often
be.
actually sold as a package.
Okay.
In most insurance brokers. I mean, Larry, best talking to an insurance broker because the insurance brokers are not stuck to one insurance company. They'll be able to look across different companies and they can give you some advice. And oftentimes they sell. In the past, I've bought both of them at the same time. They come as a package. But again, I would say speak to an expert specifically for your situation. I think Jessica Wells also had a question regarding her business and exposure. I would say speak to a business broker. They can give you good advice and steer you in the right direction.
Got you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and Joe made a great point about brokers. I am very biased towards brokers, whether it's auto insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, disability, you name it. It's brokers that are not married to one company that could shop. To me, that's kind of a bias of mine. I think, yes, I agree with that sentiment. So thank you for sharing that, Joe. All right, so business plan basics. We have been covering it the entire meeting, right? So a lot of times, and as I say this, and we are wrapping up on my part, right? Yeah, perfect, right? So I get a lot of business plan. This is just my observation and my experience and my own personal belief. Okay, there is value in a business plan. I think sometimes people's focus is like that's all they're doing is just trying to create some like beautiful document for people to read. And that's not what a business plan should be. A business plan should be, to me, short, simple, and sweet, right? What do you want to do? What's your business? What's your mission? What's your purpose? That's great. Who are your customers? Yes. Who are your competition? Who are you selling to, and how are you going to sell to them? How are you going to market to them? And then what are your financials, right? That's a business plan, right? We're talking about it all today. I'm telling you to write it down. Now, yes, put it in a nice, easy, readable format, short and sweet. I like bullet points. I think a bigger paragraph lets people read. And at the end of the day, that's your business plan. And then also for me, it's sales. And do you have everything we're talking about? And then where's your revenue going to come from? And that's my crash course on the business plan importance. But yeah, write it down so people like me can read it. Keep it short and sweet. And it just, don't make it, don't spend all your time just trying to write a document. At the end of the day, is your cash flow plan work good? Is it in place? And are you compliant? Are you legal? And then go get revenue. That's kind of, start operating. That's that part. Cool. And then again, I just said it, a little bit of structure there. Who you are, what you are, the basics, forecast, and then supporting data, right? Even the financials, bullet point it. I don't need to see the spreadsheet. And then the supporting document is the detail. All right. You're just summarizing it. And then build your team, good banker, good lawyer, accountants, insurance agents, get a mentor at SCORE. Just surround yourself with people. And I'm also a component of peer groups. Even my new person goes out to peer groups and networking groups. He's like, oh, I like that group better than that group. Because some peer groups are business groups. I go to a group twice a month called the Cabarrus Business Network, and we're all business owners. And sometimes we'll bring in a speaker, or one of us will speak, or we'll do roundtable discussions on business. And also we'll also, sometimes refer business to each other. So I'm very big into integrating myself and always having these conversations because we're always learning. And I'm, in addition, still learning stuff from other people as well. So build your team. And then you will get this assessment in the kit. Do the assessment. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah, the library is going to go in a second. And then the assessment looks like this. Just grade yourself, and when you meet your mentor or just yourself, it identifies what areas you should be focusing on. So I think keep it to an hour based on my stopwatch here. So it might have been an hour 10, hour and 5. I hope you enjoyed my part. Definitely do session 2, do session 3. I'm going to hang around for more questions. I'm going to pause for a second and answer any questions and then hand it off to the library.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And Keith, thanks very much for a great presentation. Any questions? Sonia, I think, had her hand up, so I'm not sure if your question has been answered. No? Okay. Good. Well, if you have any other questions, we'll come back to you after Christy's presentation on the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library and their resources. So if we don't have any questions at this point in time, let me pleased to move over to Christy and give us your presentation on Charlotte Mecklenburg Library and the many resources that you offer. Thank you, Keith, again.
Oh, of course, I'll be here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's see here. You'll just need to turn sharing on for me so I can share my part of the presentation. All right, let me try again. Okay. All right, can everybody see that part?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for having me today. Again, my name is Christy Buchanan Wellman. I'm an adult services librarian here at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. I'm at the Independence Regional location. And what I hope to review for you today is to let you know some wonderful business resources that you can access with your library card, which is free if you are a Mecklenburg County resident. But even if not, there are ways that you can access resources through your local library. Some are available through your local library if you are if you live in a county within North Carolina, and some are Charlotte Mecklenburg Library exclusives. And if you think that they might be worth getting an out-of-county card, it's $45 a year per household, not just per person. So these resources may be beneficial to your business, and it would be significantly less than if you tried to purchase them yourself. And if you're a senior, it's $35 a year per household. And that covers everybody in your household, not just yourself. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. First off, does your business plan have gaps? Well, the library has resources with data you can use to fill those gaps. And bonus, you've already paid for it. We're going to use an example to help you identify resources that would be beneficial for your business. We're going to use a pet supply store as our demonstration. So do you have a pet? Hands up. This is a market survey. With that, how would I find that information? Here it shows 70% of households in the United States have at least one pet. This comes to us through the ABI Informed Collection through ProQuest. That is something that is available if you are if you live anywhere within the state of North Carolina, you can access it through your library. And it's available through NC Life. So if you have your library card, go through their website, choose the NC Live resources, and choose ABI Inform. This particular statistic comes to us through the Dun & Bradstreet Industry Profile resources. So it lets us know what those stats are, and we can add that to our business plan. Another nice resources that will help us whenever we are doing our research is maybe we need information on finding competitors or where our potential customers may be. This resource is also available statewide through NC Live and through your county library, and that's called Data Axle. In this example, there are 269 businesses in Mecklenburg County that are already selling pet supplies, and it gives me a listing. Not only does it do that, it can also give me a heat map so I can determine where those businesses are. This helps me with determining, okay, maybe there's a lot of businesses here, but there's also some gaps, even with 269 competitors in the area. So with that, we can also correlate that with another resource using demographics that will help us determine where people live who spend money on their pets. So it's not just a matter of, trying not to be near competitors, but also be near the people that would spend money on their pets. So this resource here is called Simply Analytics. With this, we can even go in and search by census tract. and zero in on the places that have the highest spending power, that spend the most on their pets. I will say with the caveat that we will only have access to Simply Analytics through the end of July. So I really highly recommend, and this is a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library only product. So it has really powerful capability to let you do multiple demographic searches and load them onto your main search, to let you really zero in on a particular demographic area. So if you have a chance to come in and take a look at that, you can access that remotely with your library card. Definitely worth it. But when you log in, it'll give you a basic tutorial with how to navigate around. You can browse around as a guest, but it won't save your search. You would need to create an account to save your search. After that, you would need to make sure you save your information and download offline, because after July, this resource will no longer be available. We just could not afford to keep up this resource. In the future, we think that the new resource is going to be Social Explorer. That comes to us through NC Live, through the state library. But right now, we're not sure yet, because they haven't finalized the state just passed the budget, but we don't know, based on what funding the state library is going to get, whether they're going to be staying with Social Explorer or whether it may be another resource that we may get. So we're holding off on doing that at this moment. But until then, if you have a chance to take a look at Simply Analytics, I would highly recommend that. Here you can see you can do multiple searches and correlate those with your demographics. Here's the example of, in 2022, people in Mecklenburg County spent almost $500 million on pets. These folks spent almost $35 million on pet services alone. So what does that mean for my particular business? $500 million in sales, 269 competitors, 70% of households in Mecklenburg County, but that's evenly spread out. Even with 269 competitors, that means each competitor is going to get over $500,000 in sales. So there's plenty to go around. Over 1,000 households per competitor that would come in regularly to your business based on where they're located. And also, you can get a list of businesses nearby to invite to the grand opening, so you can cross promote one another. So here you can see, using Simply Analytics and Data Axle together, is possible to narrow down to a specific area where the high spending is and correlate that with low competition. And that's an ideal space to put your business. Another example here that you can add for more details. This is what makes Simply Analytics so powerful, is you can add other details such as age groups, education, race, language, housing, and all correlate that with through a heat map and correlate that with your search. But after I will say that Social Explorer does not present in quite the same way. I'll show you an example, but it doesn't have the layered effect like Simply Analytics does. So I really hope that you have the opportunity to take a look at it before the month is up. In the past, if people wanted to access this resource, they would have to go through an academic library, such as UNC Charlotte or another school that has that, and have a membership with that school. But we've been fortunate to have it as a local resource for as long as we have. But we're sad to see it go, but we hope that the new Social Explorer will help fill in some of the gaps. So once we've determined our audience, what do we want to say? So a way that we can find quotes from articles and experts to give authority to your social media postings, you might want to consider using Masterfile Premier. Another really nice one is ProQuest Central. Both of those are going to pull up a nice body of authoritative articles And both of those are available through NC Live. So any library within the state can access this through their local library and their library card. Next, you definitely want to keep up to date on your local business news. Since we are a part of Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, we're going to collect resources in our local area, and that means the Charlotte Business Journal and the Charlotte Observer. If you're coming from another part of the county or the state, you're going to get local resources from there. So if I was coming in through Wake County Public Library, they're going to be accessing the Raleigh News and Observer, and also their Raleigh Business Journal. So again, your library is going to have its local resources. We can't collect everyone's, but what libraries do is we try to collect our local resources and then we cross-network with each other. That's just more cost-effective. Another thing you might want to keep in mind as you're researching, wearing multiple hats for your business is needing to stay nimble. There are online courses on business marketing, entrepreneurship, bookkeeping, management, and sales. You can access this through a resource that we have that's a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library exclusive called LinkedIn Learning. You can access that with your library card. It has nice courses as well as over 130,000 videos with popular fields like web design, education and instruction, web development. So all of those might be something if you're trying to build that publicity front end for your business. Another thing that we have is right now we have Universal Class. Like Simply Analytics, it will be going away at the end of the month of July, but in its place, I would highly recommend you taking a look at O'Reilly for Public Libraries. I'm going to show a little demo on that in just a moment so you can see what both the Social Explorer and also O'Reilly for Public Libraries look like, because in future installments of this presentation, you'll see that since we won't have access to a Universal Class anymore. But I'd say O'Reilly for Public Libraries is wonderful because if you have ever done anything like O'Reilly is the famous publisher for computer code manuals. So if you ever wanted to learn something like Python or how to build an app for a particular device, these are the publishers that you would go to learn how to do that code. But they also have other business courses on everything from Microsoft Office to other business courses, and they have video. The nice thing about O'Reilly for Public Libraries is that the resources are always available. You can't check them out. There's no download for those, but they're always available. The drawback with that is that you have to write down and remember your place and where you stopped. It's not going to remember for you. So that's because of the version we have, which is through public libraries. So that's the big thing to keep in mind about using that resource, is just to remember where you left off for when you log back in. So with that, also you might want to consider, instead of looking for individual customers through Data Axle, you might also want to consider looking for groups who might be interested in your business. You might want to consider something like the Encyclopedia of Associations. That's available through the Gale Directory Library. So there you might find local associations for different pet groups that you could do a mass marketing promotion to about your business, saying that you're opening. And that's available to that's also a Charlotte Mecklenburg Library exclusive, the Gale Directory Library. But it's definitely worth it if you're looking for groups to market. Something else you might want to also consider, we're not trying to compete with SCORE in any way, but we do also have one-on-ones that you can sign up for that will help you with finding business resources for your small business. These are available normally digitally, and you can register for those through the library's website. They are for 1-hour sessions, and they'll guide you through some of these resources that might be particularly applicable to your organization. And don't worry about writing this down. I'm going to share with everyone an info packet about these resources. So you're going to get that at the end of the presentation. So don't worry about trying to remember what all of these are. So with that, also, it's a library. You knew this was coming. We've got business books, audiobooks, downloadable ebooks, and videos and more. And with that, I'm going to do a quick review of what some of those are, some of my personal favorites. So let me come up with that. Let me see here if I can share. There they are. Okay. All right. Can everybody see my browser screen now? Okay, if you can, that's great. I pulled up this resource. This is NC Live. This is what you will see if you're coming to your library through the state library. When you log in, it'll prompt you for your library card number at that point, and then you'll see these resources. I wanted to bring this up for you because since we are moving away from Simply Analytics here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, I wanted to show you the data and demographics section that was available through NC Live. It's available statewide. So we are really hoping that Social Explorer is going to be the resource of choice. But again, we don't know that until August, whenever the state library has their budget updated and they've approved their list of databases for the next 3 years. We hope it'll be Social Explorer. But if not, I wanted you at least to see that there were some other recommended demographic resources, although not as powerful. The State Data Center, as well as the Statistical Abstract of the United States. So just to let you know that those are there. Also, just a quick economic snapshot of Mecklenburg County from Social Explorer for what we have now, so you can see what it looks like in future installments of this presentation. This is going to be the kind of demographic info you're going to see, but again, I have to, when we do these, you won't be able to layer the results with different kinds of demographics like you can with Simply Analytics. You'll have to pull them out one piece at a time and then put those together in your business plan. Other resources that are good, there's some free small business resources available from the SBA. You might want to consider building those for your business plan. And also here's a quick snapshot of what O'Reilly for Public Libraries looks like. Again, these ebooks and video resources are on demand all the time. They are always available. So between tips and tricks and books, these resources are highly valued. Before, we could only get these kinds of publications from O'Reilly in small amounts. So having this database has really extended our reach with being able to have these resources all available all the time for people that are wanting to start their own enterprise. Also, I wanted to give a couple of other examples for ebook resources you can access through apps on your mobile device or inside your browser. The first one is Hoopla, and I put in a search for business startup. With that, just by doing that, there are results for different business types, and depending on the kinds of things you like, there are either audiobooks or ebooks for different things, whether it's starting a trucking business to being a freight broker. There's all kinds of startup guides in here, and Hoopla, and that's freely available with your library card, Hoopla. And the next one I'm showing, which is Libby, those are both Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library exclusives. Libby Overdrive has a really nice business and finance magazine collection. And the nice thing about the magazine collection is that it's always available and it doesn't count against your checkouts that you have in Libby. So I highly recommend getting that. And also, if you have access to more than one library that uses Libby as an interface, you can access them all through the same app and then toggle back and forth between their collections, which is really nice. Gale eBooks. This is something else that I really enjoy showing. Back in the day, this particular resource used to be in print in our business reference collection, but I like showing it. Gale eBooks is really nice. It is available through the state library, so it's available to anybody within the state of North Carolina. here through Gale eBooks. Oops, it timed me out. Okay, let me sign myself back in. When you access it remotely at this point through NC Live, it's going to prompt you for your library card. Since I'm inside the library, I didn't have to go through that step. But here in Gale eBooks, there's a really nice business plan tool, for example. So if you've exhausted yourself trying to find a business plan template for your particular business, this may help you out. It's called the Business Plans Handbook, and they released a new edition every few months, I guess about once a semester. So here's the latest one for 2026, but I can also search for the whole collection here since it's digital, so I don't have to look in each book separately like we used to have to do back in the day. So I'm going to put in pet supplies for my search. And bam, I've got these are actual business plans that have an actual business tied to them. So somewhere within North America, this business is actually real, and they're out there. And then if it's something that looks like it's similar to yours, you could even reach out to them to get some feedback for how they built their business. So here's a dog treat business, and you can see their executive summary for their business plan, your expenditures, so if you needed a template for your particular business type, whammo, you've got one. So that's one of my favorite tools, Gale eBooks and the Business Plans Handbook that's available through them. Let's see here. Another thing I heard mentioned that someone has a nonprofit that they are trying to put up. The Charlotte Mecklenburg Library and certain libraries throughout the state, this includes both North and South Carolina, may have access to a resource called Candid Search. They have recently updated their databases and combined Foundation Directory and GuideStar together into one unified interface called Candid Search. It lets you make strategic decisions with how to find funding in your particular community. It lets you find access to funders and what their requirements are for getting grants, and also will allow you to see grant recipients and how much they got the grants for. A lot of times funders don't like to give to people doing the same thing in the same area, so they may encourage you to partner with that person if you're both in the same area, that same organization, or if it's a sister organization that is maybe in another town, but they're about the same size as you, that might give you an idea about how much grant funding to request. So again, this gives you some really great insight for that. This is a library in-house use only product, so wherever you go to look at Candid Search, whether it's through us at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library or another location in another county, if they carry it, it is an in-house use only product. Another thing I would say, we're truly fortunate here in Mecklenburg County that we have access to it currently at all 20 library locations, but that may change in the future depending on our funding. If you go to a library in another county, they may only have it at their main library location. It just depends on funding and also the staff that have been trained on how to use it. So, and you can also communicate with a Candid librarian at any time if you have questions about funding, or the search you're trying to do isn't producing the results you had hoped for. They might be able to help you navigate their database a little better than even we could. But with that, you can see the value of getting your own library card. I think it's well worth it. Again, if you decide that some of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library exclusive resources are good for you, it's $45 a year for a non-resident fee. If you're 62 and older, the fee is $35. So I'm going to stop the share with that. And I'm also going to share the info packet with you guys so that you have that packet of library resources from us. So it's there in the chat window. You can just click on that and cherry pick on the resources that you found useful. I hope that, did anybody have any questions for me or anybody else from the SCORE team? Hi, Larry. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did. One quick question is,
Okay.
so are all of the counties different in North Carolina? Is there a way to tell?
Yes, there are some resources that all the libraries within North Carolina have access to, and that's through the State Library of North Carolina through NC Live. So a way you can find, and all counties within the state of North Carolina have access to the bank of resources through NC Live, and which is nclive.org, and you can see that bank of resources there.
Okay.
Um, that kind of levels the playing field for all counties within the state so that we all have kind of a standardized bank of resources. This is available whether you're a public library. They're also available to our publicly funded colleges and universities. So there are research level resources available for that, as well as certain private colleges such as Duke, because they're the part of the Research Triangle Network. So again,
Okay.
they're all available. I don't know if there's a state library equivalent for South Carolina or not. I know we're very close to Rock Hill here, but they would not have access to the same bank of resources as we would through the state library in North Carolina. But that you can always go there, and then it would prompt you to choose your county library, put in your library card number, and then bam, you can access the resources that are available from there.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet. Anybody have any other questions?
Any other questions for Christy? Christy, I think you covered everything very well, very professionally as always. Thank you. Great resources. Thank you for joining us today. Real quick wrap up here for everyone. First of all, thank you again to our presenters, Keith and Christy, today for informative sessions. As a reminder, the PowerPoint presentation is going to come your way sometime in the next 48 hours via email, so you'll get that. I also sent you the link for to SCORE and all the resources that SCORE has to offer, including other workshops. We have Simple Steps 2 to 5. As Keith mentioned before, they go into a little more detail. This is just kind of a very broad overview of all the things that you have to consider starting a business. But if you want to go deeper into marketing or the finance aspect, then there are some very good follow-up workshops for you to take. I sent you the link on that. Also, Keith showed you a simple self-assessment tool before with a few questions. It might be when you have a moment, maybe you sit down and ask yourself some hard questions and score yourself and see where you are and kind of what kind of a score you have. And I tell you what, that's a great starting point to meet up with a mentor. If you so decide to meet with a SCORE mentor, they'll have an idea of kind of where you see your business, where you see some challenges, where you need some needs. And again, starting a business is one of the most invigorating, events in your life. It comes with headaches and it's scary to start something. But I tell you, if you do it right, there's nothing, quite as exhilarating as having good business results. And a mentor, someone like Keith or myself, who've been through this before, the good, bad, and the ugly. We've had bad days and bad years, but you learn from that. And as an entrepreneur, I think that's why a lot of people are starting their own businesses, because when things don't go right, in a big company, you can blame it on a company, nothing changes. But if it's your own business, you really have nobody else to blame but yourself. You look in the mirror and you can take changes and you make changes. And I think that's the part to help develop your business and grow your business. It's not a straight line. It takes a lot of little steps. And hopefully today was a good overview to kind of get you started if you're thinking about starting a business. And if you have a business and you're struggling or you have some questions, I highly recommend getting a mentor at score.org. Go online and look at the resource and apply for a mentor. Thank you today. Thank you all for spending time with us today. And I don't know, Keith, you have any last comments?
No,
Otherwise,
just best of luck to everybody, and we wish you all the best. And definitely tap in and continue to use the resources from SCORE for sure.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all, and stay cool and have a great upcoming weekend. Yeah, all the best. Thank you for joining us today.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Thanks for
Oh,
having me with
you're
you
welcome.
today.
Thank you.